We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back once again, this time with episode 106 of Vikings Uncensored. Inching ever closer to the NFL draft for 2023. Got a lot to go over here tonight. A couple of news items. Then we're going to knock out the players that have been confirmed with top 30 draft visits or meeting at the combine. Then we're going to do the positional breakdown, looking at the defensive backs, our cornerbacks and safety group this week. We'll have another viral video of the week, plus our mock draft roundup and anything else we can think of along the way. So with that, why don't we get started? A couple of news items, like I said, this week. Probably the biggest one is Odell Beckham Jr. finally has a home. He signed a 1-year, $15 million deal with the Baltimore Ravens that could go as high as $18 million with incentives. Basically, this is one of those, like we talked about a week or so ago, dangling the carrot out in front of Lamar Jackson. Hey, look, we got you weapon. We got you weapon. Come on, sign your franchise tag. Come back.
Yep. Wilson. I'm sorry, Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson. We'll see if OBJ's got anything left in the tank. Remains to be seen, being he hasn't played in a year and a half and coming off of.
I feel like it's been an eternity since we've seen him on the field.
Yeah. I mean, he got hurt in, was it the Super Bowl or was it the
Super Bowl.
NFC Championship? Yeah, it was right away early in the Super Bowl.
He was having a decent game up until that point.
Yeah. But beyond that, another couple other fairly significant news items. Tampa Bay linebacker Devin White has requested a trade.
Interesting.
Coming up on he'll have his 5th-year option here pretty soon. But
they're going to want a king's ransom for him, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's too bad because he's an intriguing player to me.
I like Devin White. I liked him coming out of college.
Fierce competitor.
Mm-hmm. Now, would he be a good fit in the 3-4 kind of thing that we're running?
I think he could translate fairly well to.
I think it's possible. I mean, he's young enough, and he's got speed, he's got mobility, he's smart guy, but. There again, he's going to want to get paid, like you said, and Tampa's not going to give him away for cheap either.
It's not realistic for us this season to go get somebody of that caliber. Next year, it might be a little bit more. It might be a little bit more possible with the salary cap for us going up next off season.
Yeah, but of course, we're already into that point where. It's been reported that the team has already started negotiations with Hawkinson on an extension, and by this time next year, we're going to have to have Justin Jefferson extended, or we're at least working on an extension.
The sooner the better on Jefferson, in my opinion.
Right? Yeah, because the price tag is only going to go up.
Exactly. And Hawkinson, I know. I mean, Not saying Jefferson doesn't want to be here, obviously, but Hawkinson, I just feel, wants to be here in Minnesota. I think he likes being in Minnesota. His dad's a Vikings fan. It's just he enjoys the fact that he's playing probably for his childhood team growing up, just like Adam Thielen did as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, Hawkinson is a little more urgent because he's going into his 5th year now, so we have to get signed. Jefferson still has 2 more years of team control, so
it's a must for Hawkinson, though, in my opinion, as well, to get him signed. We haven't had a tight end of his caliber here in a long time, and I'm not trying to discredit Kyle Rudolph, but TJ Hawkinson takes it to another level.
I agree. He's got the yard after catch ability that Rudolph never did have,
and a far better route runner as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Rudy was a good route runner. I'm not gonna knock him for that. It's just, you know, when he always talked about Rudolph, yak meant yard after catch because he catch it and go 1 yard and fall down. But anyway, one other high-profile player movement this week: the Lions traded cornerback Jeff Okudah to Atlanta for a 5th-round pick.
Wow!
No, Okudah was a top 5 pick here a couple years.
Why can't we fucking manage these snag deals like this?
Because I'm pretty sure Detroit didn't want to trade him within the division. I don't know why Detroit traded
in general, man. In general, why can't we ever get a good deal like this from somebody? It seems like we always get, you know, it's either, you know, a decent deal or we get fleeced. No fucking in between.
I don't know, but I'm not going to be sad about Okudah. I mean, Okudah's been hurt quite a bit and that kind of stuff.
And you're betting on potential there as well for the most part.
Yeah, and he's going to want to get paid here in a year or so as well. But Atlanta getting him for a 5th-round pick, that's a steal. And I'm not sad about him not being in the division anymore. So,
right.
But then the only other thing, I guess, news-wise, that's semi-Vikings related, our old buddy Armon Watts, who a lot of people tended to lose their mind over when we cut him at the end of training camp. You know, he played for Chicago last year.
Last season.
Yeah, did little of nothing for Chicago. He has signed a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Have not heard what the terms of the deal were, but it was announced, I believe, on Tuesday that he had signed with them. So good for him. He's found a team to hook on with, and we'll see if he makes it in Pittsburgh. I don't, he's not a guarantee to make the team there, I don't think. But
right, that's how I feel as well.
But anyway, that's about it for the news. Other than, of course, top 30 draft visits are going on in earnest here this week. Vikings have done a ton of theirs. Some of them, of course, they did at the Combine. And then they've got a bunch coming into Egan this week for visits. Here's the list so far of players that they have either planned on or have interviews scheduled with or have already met with. I'll read them off, and you can tell me if they move the needle one way or the other for you. We've definitely done our due diligence on quarterbacks. The latest to come in is Tanner McKee, the quarterback out of Stanford. Decent.
I wouldn't be upset with that, although he's not. I haven't looked into him much, but he was okay in college.
Well, he's not a mobile guy by any means. He's got a good arm.
At Stanford, you don't usually get those mobile guys coming out of Stanford.
No, and Stanford's offensive scheme, to quote our buddy Tyler Fornes, was atrocious. But there's a lot of comps of Tanner McKee to Kirk Cousins, so I don't know that we want to move on from Kirk Cousins just to get younger Kirk Cousins, myself personally, but beyond that, he's the only guy we've had in this week as far as quarterbacks go, but we've done our diligence on a bunch of the other ones. At the Combine, they met with both Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. They've also done a fair amount of background work on Dorian Thompson-Robinson out of UCLA. And, per Darren Doogie Wolfson, KSTP, they've done a bunch of work on Hendon Hooker as well. So,
right.
And I know on Wednesday, Doogie was on Mackey and Judd, and he said the Vikings have done more investigation and due diligence on quarterbacks this year than he can remember for a long time.
I'm at
so
the point now where I'm about to put both my legs in the bucket of us actually taking the quarterback in this year's draft. It's almost 100% certainty that's what we're going to do at some point or another.
I think so too. It just depends on where we do it. Whether we swing for the fence and try to move up to the top 5 and get one of the big 4. I'm going to put it at the only 2 I would trade up that high for would be either Bryce Young or AR-15. I'm not confident enough in CJ Stroud to do that. I know a lot of people think differently. They think Stroud's the best player in this draft.
I don't like what I see out of Stroud either. It's just he doesn't seem like he has that maturity that you would like to see out of the player.
And it's another thing there. He played for Ohio State. Look at the wide receivers the kids had the last couple of years. You got Smith and Jigba, you had Garrett Williams, you had Chris Olave, you've had Marvin Harrison Jr. You've got all those guys that can make any quarterback look good. And it's just the history of Ohio State quarterbacks.
Is it not good?
Yeah, and something in my gut says that Stroud is not going to pan out. And he may be a fine, middle of the road starter, but he's not going to be that elite franchise guy that people are.
Time will tell, obviously, but
right.
I'm not all in on Stroud as well, but who knows?
No. Then of course the other one, like I said, Hendon Hooker. Been a lot of smoke about him the last couple of weeks, but where he's going to go, it's all over the board. I've seen him in legit drafts as high as the late teens into the second round, depending upon who you're looking at. And like you and I were talking before the draft or before we started the show here. Taking Hooker in the first round, I don't know that I want to take him at 23. Ideally, you can move back to 30, 31, somewhere in there, still get that 5th-year option. I know a lot of people are saying, well, you can get him in the second. But if you're going to have him sit for a year behind Cousins, getting that 5th-year option is significant, I think.
It is. Like I said, I might not be all in on Hendon Hooker, but I don't run this team. And if the organization thinks that that's their guy for real and that they can mold this guy into the next franchise quarterback for this team, then I'm going to be all in. I'm going to support this next quarterback, whoever it may be, until he proves me wrong.
And I'm in the same boat. I'm not convinced Hooker's the guy either. Not convinced that he's not either. It's a toss-up as far as I'm concerned.
Whoever we get, it could be Tom, Dick, or Harry, whoever it is that's going to be the next guy that they invest in, then I'm going to follow him until I shouldn't follow him anymore.
Yep.
Which is like 3 years down the road because, you got to see how he plays, and develops.
Right.
So,
but anyway, moving on here, we got a bunch of guys to go through yet. So wide receivers confirmed have been Quentin Johnston out of TCU.
Of course, I would be happy.
He's my top wide receiver on the board if we can get him. Jordan Addison out of USC, and also Trey Palmer out of Nebraska are the ones that have been confirmed in.
Of course.
Now, Palmer's a mid to late round guy.
Yeah.
Addison is anywhere from late first to second round somewhere.
It's a good pool of receivers.
Yeah, there's not too many that are going to be elite, I don't think. But, we're not looking for elite. We're looking for a legit number 2.
They're looking for a number 2 guy to go behind the number 1.
And Quentin Johnston, I think, has the potential to be someone that would push for a number 1 spot. Now, granted, he's never going to be above Justin Jefferson, but I think he would be a very good fit on the other side of Jefferson.
A Reggie Wayne to a Marvin Harrison.
Yeah. A Carter and Moss kind of duo, or however you want to look at it. Then defensive tackles we've had in this week, Keon White from Georgia Tech and Carl Brooks from Bowling Green. Brooks, I think, more of a mid-round guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've had in 3 safeties this week. Brian Branch out of Alabama, your draft crush. He was here. Marty Mapu from Sacramento State.
I poo too.
Yeah, I poo, you poo, we poo, you poo, Mapu. And then Jordan Howden from the University of Minnesota. Now, some of these guys from the University of Minnesota didn't count against the top 30 because local colleges or players that grew up in the area don't necessarily count against your top 30. So there's a bunch of University of Minnesota guys on here that they've talked to that don't count against that top 30. So then cornerbacks, Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State has been in. Jarek Bernard Converse out of LSU. Mekhi Blackman out of USC. Starling Thomas, the 5th, out of UAB. And then another Gopher, Terrell Smith. Anybody really tip the scales there for you? Or?
Nah. No, not really. Not necessarily as far as, I mean, as depth guys, absolutely, but
yeah. And we'll get into the cornerbacks here a little bit more in just a couple minutes, but linebackers, the only one that we've been confirmed to have in is Muhammad Diabate from Utah.
Wow, that's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah.
We've only had one in.
Just because we haven't had him in for a visit doesn't mean we're not looking. Like, they look back to when they drafted Harrison Smith. We've talked about this before too. Right. They met with him for 5 minutes at the Senior Bowl and then never talked to him again. But have had a couple of guards in. Anthony Bradford out of LSU and Nash Jensen out of NDSU. Jensen's he's an okay player. He's not a Cody Mock by any stretch of the imagination, but Jensen I see as being more of a backup in the NFL than pushing for a starting job. Then running backs, we've had a couple of them come in. Anthony Bradford, I just read it. Dwayne McBride out of UAB, he was in on Wednesday. And then Evan Hull out of Northwestern, who is from Minnesota, I believe, originally, so he doesn't count against the top 30 as well.
Okay.
And then the only center we've talked to is John Michael Schmitz out of University of Minnesota. Again, local college, so didn't count. So there's a wide variety, many different positions.
Absolutely is, yeah.
So they're definitely covering their bases. A bunch of these guys that they've talked to haven't really fall into some of the stuff that at least Kwesi showed that he was after last year. Power 5 schools and certain percentages, things like that.
Yep.
So we'll see if how if his trends from last year keep going into this year, or what the plan's going to be, because we really don't know what Kwesi's going to do yet.
This draft for us is, for every team basically too, but for us, because we're feeling it right now, it's huge. What are we going to do with Delvin Cook? What are we going to do with Zadarius Smith? I'm hearing whispers of a trade frenzy that's about to happen here in Minnesota, come draft day. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I still maintain Dalvin Cook is going to get moved by the time the draft is over, and one, if not both, of Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter.
And if that happens, man, that means there's a lot of action going on in that war room.
Yep. We're going to roll into the final position group breakdown for the preseason. Looking at the defensive backs today, both cornerbacks and safeties. Starting out with the cornerbacks, on the roster, we currently have Byron Murphy Jr., Andrew Booth Jr., a Caleb Evans, Tay Gowan, and Kalon Barnes. I don't know that you necessarily call that a murderer's row of cornerbacks, but
No, I foresee us either going for somebody in the mid round of the draft, or waiting until training camp time where some guys get shaved away from some of these other rosters, or undrafted free agents as well. So
yeah, and that's the thing with this draft as far as cornerbacks go. I know it's kind of always been the trendy pick is to give the Vikings a cornerback in the first round, but there is a lot of good cornerbacks that you're going to find in round 2, round 3 that can be quality starters. They may not be an elite level shutdown cornerback, but somebody I think that
become one. I mean, I'm okay with that.
But guys, I think that could fit into a Flores defense and do a decent job.
Which is a huge thing, because Flores is going to be, I think, have a lot of say in what goes on when they go after a lot of these defensive players they're targeting.
Yeah, and with the cornerbacks with him, a lot of times they're going to get stuck on an island, so they're going to have to be able to play a lot more man and press coverage than we did last year, because Flores is going to want to blitz more and bring the safeties up and run the linebackers, things like that. But just running through
on defense this year.
Yep, but just running through some of the available cornerbacks in the draft. Of course, these early guys. You've got Witherspoon out of Illinois and Gonzalez out of Oregon. They're the consensus 1-2, depending upon who you look at, which way they go. I believe both of those guys will be gone by the time we pick at 23. Then you've got Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State, a guy that has been mocked to the Vikings on multiple occasions. Seems to be dropping down the draft boards a little bit. I've seen him fall into the second round quite a bit now. I don't know why. Then you've got Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State, another guy that's been mocked to the Vikings a lot. And we'll talk about him when we get down into our mock draft roundup a little bit more. Keely Ringo out of Georgia. Another guy that we've seen.
Another name that keeps popping up for sure. Yeah.
Yep. Deontay Banks out of Maryland. Another guy that has been mocked to us multiple times this week. As we'll see here. A lot of these
names that you're saying are, from what I could see, are decent players as well. I mean that.
Right. I mean, yeah, they're all cornerbacks that have got a first or second round grade on them.
And usually there's at least one or two standout guys, and in this draft there really isn't anybody that really stands out above anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Then of course there's also Cam Smith out of South Carolina. He's kind of been the forgotten guy in this group for some reason or another. You early on you heard a lot about the kid. And I don't know. I guess I didn't follow his pro day. If he didn't test that well or something, so he's sliding a little bit. But it's he's starting to look like a guy you're probably going to be able to get in round 2. If we were to get a second round pick and put it in there. Couple other guys that are showing a lot of times in that 3rd to 5th round area that I think can have the potential to be quality starting cornerbacks that we could be targeting. Garrett Williams out of Syracuse, guy I kind of like. He's battled through some injuries, but played well when he was, when he's been healthy. Clark Phillips III out of Utah, another guy that I've watched play a little bit, and I think could be a potential target. Probably 3rd round or 4th round or somewhere in there. And then another guy we've talked about him before, and I know it's a guy like when Tyler was on a couple weeks ago that he likes is Caillou Blue Kelly out of Stanford.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say. I was waiting for it.
Yep, and he's in that 4th round range, give or take.
I know, and I don't think we're the only ones that are chattering about this kid. Maybe he's one of the surprise, higher day 2 picks too. Who knows?
It's possible,
right?
I mean. But I think there's a better chance of us taking a cornerback in a round 3, round 4 than there is of us taking one around 1, honestly.
If Kelly's there in the 3rd round when we go to pick and we take him, I would be extremely happy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset with that at all. We definitely need at least one more cornerback.
Right.
We really
and then probably I'd say we need at least 2 more.
Probably.
I would say.
Because right now,
draft, and one from either the undrafted free agency or wait until training camp comes around and they start trimming down rosters.
Yeah, of course. Now this year there's only one cut down date, so it's makes things a little bit different too. So, but right now we don't have a specified slot corner. Murphy plays inside and outside, but I think they want to put Murphy outside.
I believe probably so more. Too, yeah. Murphy's going to be the guy, basically, our number 1 corner this year. Now,
Andrew Booth, he's got to prove that he can stay healthy because that's something he's never done.
And he's been handsy. So let's hope that Flores can get that potential that Booth does have out of him. And hopefully this kid can stay healthy because that's been the red flag since he came out of he went into college.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was said he hasn't been healthy since high school.
Right. Exactly. Yes. It's been a concern since he went into college.
Yep.
But when healthy, the dude makes plays.
Yeah. Well, even when he's not healthy and he's still playing, he's made plays. He just has to be able to stay on the field.
And you know what that does to your confidence when you can't stay on the field too? That, I mean, he's got to be a loose cannon somewhat. So.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of loose cannons, so we have a Caleb Evans who played well when he was out there last year, but
got his bell rung a few times. Man.
Yeah, he had 3 concussions, so
his own bell.
He's got to learn to be a little bit more,
or take different angles, something because
be more careful when he's
tackle
when he's making those tackles and stuff, and hit with the shoulder and not get in there with the head. Where he's
senior a call and ask him some questions.
Got to do something because I mean the kid's got talent. He just has to make sure he doesn't turn his brain into scrambled eggs.
For its eyes.
Yeah.
And if his body can't handle making those hits, then he needs to figure out something different.
Right.
But I liked what I seen out of the kid last year. But like we said, he can't stay on the field. We want to see the kid on the field.
Right. And then the other 2 guys you got, Tay Gowan is just a guy. Kalon Barnes is faster than hell, but to this point hasn't proven that he can be anything more than a fast guy. Not even a lock to make the roster as it sits, but of course, the ones we lost from last year: Patrick Peterson, Duke Shelley, Chris Boyd, Shannon Sullivan, who basically was made the team better by not bringing him back, but. Boyd just signed earlier this week.
I seen that to Arizona, right?
Was it Arizona? I can't remember who he went to, but
well, he's not here no more.
Right.
But yeah, I did see that.
Duke Shelley, of course, went to Vegas. The weird thing with that is, I think that the difference in what we offered him versus what Oakland versus what LA, the Raiders offered him was
Vegas.
I heard it was either only like $100,000 or $200,000 difference in the contract. So I don't know that we must not.
Maybe they're giving him a shot to start. I mean,
I'm guessing probably, but
granted, he should have been given that opportunity here as well. I believe he played himself. He played insane. Down the stretch.
He should have at least been the 3rd cornerback. I would have thought if he'd have brought him back here, but maybe Flores decided he didn't think he was going to fit in what he wanted to do, I guess. So, but anyway,
he just didn't want to be here either.
Could be. I think he wanted to be, and I think he got a little ticked off that we didn't do something with him earlier. So he just kind of said, "Screw it, I'm out," kind of thing.
That could be. Yeah, absolutely. We'll never know unless we find out.
Right.
Which we probably won't.
Which is how most things work out, and we don't know unless we find out. So.
Oh man, I'm a genius.
Yeah. Smirk. SMRT. Smirk.
Yeah, we're smart.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on to the safeties now. Of course, we still have Harrison Smith, who redid his deal to take a significant pay cut. Basically, we're on a 1-year deal now. I'm very, very intrigued to see what Harrison Smith is going to do in a Flores defense.
And I think he is too. That's why he wanted to stick around.
Yep, and that was the word kind of came out after Smith had redid his deal that his agent was getting multiple calls from other teams talking about wanting to bring him in, and Harrison Smith. Down. Yep, he told his agent, stop taking calls. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to be in Minnesota. So, I mean,
that's good to hear.
I love Harrison Smith. He's been one of my favorite players on this team for ever since he's been here. But when the guy does something like that and still,
right, and
it shows his commitment to the team as well. So
it's not very often where I'm like, Harrison Smith, what the fuck are you doing? Throughout his entire career,
right?
So I mean, you just don't. If his play was, sliding, then I would be like, all right, it's time to move on. But it hasn't.
He had 5 picks last year playing in Donachel's defense, and I think they only blitzed him 13 times all season, which is about a third of what they normally do.
He's still playing at a high level. So until he's not, why not keep him around?
Yeah. Then, of course, we also have Cameron Bynum. Lewis Seen should be back at the very latest by training camp. By all accounts, his recovery from that broken leg is coming along very well.
I heard he's ahead of schedule, actually.
Yeah, he's been there's been videos of him working out and training at TCO that he's looking pretty good. So things ought to be good there. Then, of course, we also have Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus. Metellus, very good special teams guy, and honestly played fairly decently on defense when he got the.
As well. Because he got that C on his jersey at the end of the year last year, and his teammates just loved the fact that he was one of the captains at the end of the year.
Yeah. Now, as far as safeties go, I don't think there's really a whole lot that the Vikings are really going to dig into all that much in the draft. The only one I could see is your draft crush, of course, Brian Branch, who is a combination.
He's not just a safety; he's a gadget guy on defense you can put anywhere.
Yeah, he's got a lot of scheme versatility.
Obviously,
can play in the slot. You run that 3 safety set. He would definitely be one cornerback / safety that I would pick in the first round.
I mean, he can do it all. He can do it all.
So I think he's definitely one worth watching. Beyond that, like I said, I really don't. We might pick up a guy later on.
Back in the first round, Brian Branch is the only one I want to take. If we're going defensive back in the first round.
Yeah, no, I won't argue that point. But anyway, that's about what all we've got for the cornerbacks, unless you got anything else you want to bring up.
I think it was a good discussion. I think we're good.
All right. So with that, we're going to roll into this week's classic viral video. So if you're out of beer, go grab yourself one out of the fridge and come on back. Check this one out. We'll be back in a minute.
Round of Stansbury. Now, Michael Jordan told me he had something special. He may be trying to take off from the free throw line a la Julius Erving. Let's see what happens. He kind of measured it from there. He's going back. That very may well be it, and the people are excited. They like this.
I can hear his engines revving now.
Air Jordan ready to take off.
In Chicago.
Got to be a 50 by. He took off just a little inside that free throw line, one hand and double clutch it. Magic Johnson gives him a nice 5 underneath the basket as he got out of the way. Let's watch this one again. This deserves a second look. Michael taking off. The patented tongue comes out just in front of that line. Look at this. The double clutch, the reach out, and the stuff. He got 49. I don't believe it.
Unbelievable.
There we go. There's the slam camera, the slam jam camera, I like to call it. As you see that little double reach out, if that's not a 50, I don't know who didn't give him 10, but I want to see that, Judge.
All right, we are back. And This week we will be doing our second to last mock draft roundup for the week. So let's take a look and see what the experts have been mocking to us this week.
Keep rolling, 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 though the strings are swollen. Keep them doggies rolling, rawhide.
Rawhide! All right, so now we will pop up this week's list. And here again, it's been a lot of bouncing back and forth the last couple of weeks. Wide receiver was big a couple weeks ago. Cornerback has been big most of the year. Now this week we're kind of getting a little bit more of a mix, including some couple of edge rushers this week. But we'll start off with wide receiver out of TCU, Quentin Johnston, mocked to us by Jordan. Bleh.
This week. It's you this week, man.
Yes. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver out of TCU, mocked to us by Jordan Dajani out of CBS Sports and Rhett Lewis from NFL.com.
Well, if that's the case, that offense just got better. That got already good offense just got that much better.
Yeah. Quentin Johnston is my number one wide receiver I on the board.
Yeah, easily.
He's different than most of the other guys because he's got some height to him and he's got, some good deep ball ability.
Good yak ability too after the catch. I mean, he doesn't have to always go deep. You can run him on a slant. And he can still get those yards.
Yep, and I think he would be a perfect complement to Jefferson on the other side. And like I said, if we go wide,
another, it would be fantastic. Make the defense choose their poison.
Right. Then the second guy this week, another wide receiver, Jordan Addison out of USC. He's a little bit of an enigma to me. I've talked to people who absolutely love the kid. Then I've talked to people who think this kid is going to be a bust. I don't think he has quite the physical skills of a Johnston or a Zay Flowers like that.
The USC receiver as well. I mean, it's been a while
there's a question there too. I don't know that he's not necessarily high on my list of guys I take, I guess, but I'm not
mine either.
No. But I mean, there was plenty of guys who thought that way this week. Walter Chapinski from Walter Football, Thor Nystrom from Fantasy Pros, and Ian Cummings from Pro Football Network all gave us Jordan Addison. So,
wow.
Then the next guy, we move back to cornerback once again. Deontay Banks, cornerback out of Maryland, mocked to us by the SB Nation staff mock. Garrett Podell of CBS Sports and Joel Klatt from Fox Sports. Banks is a guy we've seen mocked to the Vikings repeatedly ever since we started doing the roundup.
So that means that we're probably not going to get him.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not really on board for a first-round cornerback anyway.
Right.
But the next guy on the list here, very intriguing prospect, and we haven't seen him mocked to us very much, maybe once or twice before. But
this could be one of the best steals of the draft, I think.
Yeah, Kalijah Cansey out of Pitt. Of course, very good defensive tackle coming out of Pitt. Immediately draws comparisons to another former. What's that?
I said, of course, Aaron Donald comparisons.
Yep. Right. He draws Aaron Donald comparisons, of course, played for the same team, but
this dude is good.
I
believe he's flying under a lot of radars, and he could end up being one of the better defensive linemen in this year's draft class.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset if we took him. Don't know that if that's high on the Vikings' radar in the first round, but we definitely need some help on the defensive line as well. So I wouldn't be upset.
it's sorely needing a little bit more of a oomph on that defensive line, especially when it comes to penetration and its rushing ability.
Yep.
Stopping the run.
Right. And it was Connor Rogers from NBC Sports is the one that gave us Cansey this week. Next guy, another defensive lineman. We've seen him mocked to the Vikings on several occasions. Brian Brisset, defensive lineman out of Clemson. He was given to us by Sam Monson of Pro Football Focus. And in this case, was on Monson's mock, we actually traded back to 31 and then took Brisset.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because that means we're winning. We're accumulating some more picks on the back end then.
Yep, and we're also getting a very good defensive lineman too.
Exactly. That's a win in my opinion. Yeah.
Yep. This next guy, now this is the first time I've seen him mocked in the first round.
Yeah, I don't know this name. So
Julius Brents, the cornerback out of Kansas State. Jack McKessie from the Draft Network gave him to us. Decent cornerback. I don't know a ton about him. I watched a couple of Kansas State games this year, but he's definitely a guy that has not been up in that first round conversation. This is the first, like I said. So I think this maybe is a little bit high for someone like him. He's probably a second round prospect, maybe early third. Then the only quarterback that got mocked to us this week, Will Levis out of Kentucky, mocked to us by Charlie Campbell from Walter Football. Ryan Wilson.
I would be more than okay with that. I would be happy.
Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports, and Chad Reuter of NFL Network. But Chad Reuter had us trading up to 10 to get Levis.
No, I wouldn't trade up that high to get him.
No,
but I mean, if we did, I'd be happy that we got him. But I don't want to give up that to go get somebody like him. For Richardson, yeah. For Levis, I would be more happy if he fell to us. Somewhere in between that 15 to 23 range.
Yeah, I mean, if we're moving up to make a splash, for me, it's either Anthony Richardson, or if for some reason or another Bryce Young slips a few spots, you go after him. Levis at 23, I would have no problem with. I don't want to.
I'd be elated at 23.
I don't want to mortgage the farm to move up to get him. Like you said, I probably wouldn't go up past 15 to 18, somewhere in there. If he falls down that far, I might make the move. I don't think he's going to fall that far personally. Myself, I have concerns about him, but I think there's enough quarterback needy teams that somebody's going to take him before that. If he could go as high as 4 to Indy, he could go.
So fall into the end of the first round.
Yeah. I don't think he would get by somebody like Tennessee. I think if he's still there, Tennessee would take him.
Him and Hooker could be in the green room until day 2. Who knows?
Yeah, Levis doesn't get out of the first round.
Fall into the second round.
I don't either.
And
Hooker,
if he does, I would be like, why the fuck did we take him at 23?
Yeah. Then, of course, the next guy on here again, your favorite player, Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama, safety / cornerback.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy there.
Yeah,
I would not be upset.
I wouldn't either. There again, the position flexibility and his versatility. He's another one I think that would be a very, very, very good scheme fit for a Flores defense.
Yep, gadget guy, kind of do it all exactly. Yep.
There again, Ian Cummings from Pro Football Network and Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports both mock him to us.
If a guy like Brian Branch falls to 23 and your defense sucks ass, you take Brian Branch.
Yeah, and I think there's a very good chance Branch is going to be available around that range. So
exactly, yeah.
Then the next guy, this next kid, Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. They're again very quick, very speedy, very good on his routes. For as short as he is, he's very good at contested catches too. He was one of the higher ranked contested catch wide receivers in college football last year.
He's physical for his size, for sure.
Yep. I mean, he's on, what is he, like 5'10", I believe, something like that. So he's on the shorter side of things.
I've heard Percy Harvin comparisons to
yeah, I've heard that in a few spots too. He's probably my number 2 wide receiver that I would want behind Quentin Johnston.
And if he plays anything like Percy Harvin, fucking bring that guy in, man.
Yeah.
I love me some Percy Harvin back in the day when he was on the field.
Right.
God, he was great, man.
Yep.
Hey, 12 is coming up here pretty soon, so I can't wait to talk about him.
Then the next guy on the list, Emmanuel Forbes, the cornerback out of Mississippi State. Mel Kiper Jr. from ESPN mocks him to us. I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff about Forbes coming here, but his size concerns me. I mean, he only weighed in at 166 pounds, which is like 15 to 20 pounds lighter than Cam Dantzler was. And we had issues.
Big football player.
No, we had issues with Cam Dantzler being too small. So I mean, Forbes is a good player, but
right. He's a player. Yeah,
he is, but his size concerns me. I mean, he started getting smacked around by tight ends and some of these bigger wide receivers and stuff.
We can't have 3 fucking corners on our team with injury concerns.
Yeah, and we need somebody with a little bit of size back there. And I mean, Forbes is just too small for me. Not saying he's not going to
get size, but he just can't stay healthy.
Right. Then the next guy, Will McDonald IV, edge rusher out of Iowa State. Ben Robinson from Football Outsiders mocks him to us. This is the first time we've seen McDonald, I think, mocked to the Vikings. I don't remember seeing him up there before.
No.
He's another guy I think that's kind of seems like he's been more in that second roundish or so. And
I don't know if Iowa State's ever had a first rounder ever drafted anyways.
Yeah, I think that they probably have. I guess I off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who it would be, but I think there's better edge rushers available than, I mean, I'm not saying McDonald's a bad player. I don't really know a lot about him, to be honest with you.
Yep.
But it's just a name that just kind of popped up into all of a sudden in the first round that we really haven't seen a whole lot of there before. So
absolutely.
Then the final guy on the list this week, another guy that we've seen mocked to us multiple times in the past, Lucas Van Ness, the edge rusher out of Iowa. Tony Pauline from Pro Football Network is the one that gave him to us this week. Now, like we said, Van Ness has been mocked to the Vikings before. He's a guy that's
so either, you know.
I don't think so either. I mean, he's still very raw. Guy's got a really high ceiling, but and a lot of it depends on what we end up doing with Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter. I mean, we did bring in, Davenport, of course. So, I mean, edge rusher is definitely a possibility early. Do we take one in the first round? I don't know.
And with how compelling this draft is probably going to be for the Vikings, I don't know either. You got Zadarius Smith possibly on the outs and come draft night, and you got Hunter that's, chatter about him possibly being shipped around too. And who knows? This is a big draft for this purple and gold team, as it is for a lot of the teams, for most teams in the league.
Yeah. And, there's so many different ways that the Vikings could go on this, and we really don't have a good feel for, what Kwesi's tendencies are yet. All we know is last year we did not pick a single player in the original position where we had a draft pick. We traded every draft pick that we had. So will that be more? There wasn't a single draft pick taken in one of our original draft slots.
Wow.
Now, I look to see a lot of that again this year because the fact we only have 5 picks right now. Do we make the splash and move up for a quarterback? Do we trade back and try to accumulate more picks? get a second rounder, another third rounder, things like that. All these are very, the probability of any of these options are all kind of right in that same range. It's going to be interesting.
Exactly. It's hard to say what's going to happen. Even more so this year, in my opinion.
I think so too. Anything else you want to hit on these guys before we?
Nope. A lot of those names we've discussed before and seen, So I believe our takes are pretty much out there already on a lot of those guys.
Yeah. But with that, that's really all we've got for this week. Again, I want to thank everybody.
Watched my room get darker as the show went on.
Yeah, getting that
Yep.
the natural lighting going away there. But want to thank everybody again for watching. If you have not done so yet, please hit that subscribe button down below. Like the videos, helps us out a ton, helps us build the brand. Again, keep a reminder of our other shows. Vikings Uncensored now has content going out 3 nights a week. Monday nights with Ryno's Rants, where I kind of take a look at some of the hot button issues and kind of more of a no holds barred, free for all type stuff. We do it live, so join in on the conversation. I take your comments, take your questions. We talk about the topic of the day kind of thing. Wednesday nights, Brunswick's Best, where Lance takes a look at the best players in Vikings history, looking at each number chronologically. So keep an eye out for that. And then, of course, we have the main studio show Friday nights at 6 p.m. as well. So if you're out and about, take us with you. We're on your audio cast channels on YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff, Twitter. But with that, why don't you take us home, Lance?
Nice having you guys all again this week. Thanks for coming. Also, to add to what Ryno was saying, hit that notification bell because we're going to be having some live shows coming up that may be on a Thursday or a Saturday, just depending. So I would recommend hitting that notification bell as well.
Yep.
Just in case we do go live. But glad to have you all here. We're still growing. We're still seeing names down in that chat on Fridays that are new to us, which is fantastic. And with that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys Friday for the show and for some of our future episodes coming up. It's cool.
Have a good weekend, everybody.